La 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 la.
Good morning, dear listeners, and welcome to today's special edition of Light of the Morning, the radio program dedicated to deep thinkers, curious minds, and creative souls. Today we've curated a rich and thought-provoking lineup just for you. Segment 1. In Focus, Philosophy and Technology. We'll start the morning by diving into the intersection of philosophy and artificial intelligence. This week, we explore the thoughts of thinkers like Alan Turing and the possibilities they open for AI, along with a reflective look at how concepts from philosophical idealism are influencing today's digital advancements. How do consciousness and computation meet? Join us in a discussion that blurs the line between human intuition and machine intelligence. Segment 2. Cultural Pulse, Music Meets Mathematics. Next up, a musical journey through the fascinating world of fractal rhythms and algorithmic compositions. How do mathematical patterns shape music? We'll listen to compositions that derive from Fibonacci sequences and chaos theory, showcasing how music and numbers form a harmonious bond. We'll also hear insights from composers who've tapped into these structures to create mind-bending sonic landscapes. Segment 3. Philosopher's Corner. Exploring Žižek and Fidaner. In this deep dive, we'll discuss the writings of Slavoj Žižek and how his ideas intersect with some of the works of Işık Barış, Fidaner. We'll analyze Fidaner's contributions to contemporary thought, particularly his explorations into the politics of digital culture and the symbolic universe of algorithms. How do these modern frameworks reshape the fabric of our social lives? Get ready for an enlightening conversation. Segment 4. Book Simulacra and Simulation by Baudrillard. As we continue with our philosophical theme, we'll review Baudrillard's seminal work on hyperreality, discussing its relevance in today's media-saturated world. How does this connect with digital avatars, virtual worlds, and even social media? Stay tuned for a critical analysis of the layers of reality and simulation that govern our lives. Segment 5. Reflections on the Future. AI Ethics and Society. As we move toward the end of our program, we'll delve into the ethics of AI. With rapidly advancing technologies, what are the implications for privacy, creativity, and human agency? Is society prepared for the future of autonomous machines, or are we creating more problems than we can solve? This segment will feature expert opinions and thought-provoking questions about the responsibilities we face in designing tomorrow's digital world. Segment 6. Sounds of Nature Meditative Escape. To close today's program, we'll transport you to a calming oasis with ambient recordings from deep within nature's beauty. A moment of mindfulness to reflect on everything we've discussed, leaving you refreshed and ready to face the day. That's all for today's broadcast. We hope this journey through ideas, music, and philosophy inspired you and sparked your curiosity. Stay tuned for more stimulating content tomorrow on Light of the Morning, where every thought finds its light.
La 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 la. In Focus, Philosophy and Technology. La 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 la.
Good morning, dear listeners, and welcome to In Focus, where we explore the fascinating crossroads of ideas and innovation. Today, we're diving into a topic that's transforming the world around us: the intersection of philosophy and technology. What happens when human thought meets artificial intelligence? Can machines ever think like humans, or is there something uniquely intangible about human consciousness? Let's begin by considering the foundational work of one of the greatest minds of the 20th century, Alan Turing. In 1950, Turing posed a question that continues to shape the field of AI today. Can machines think? His now famous Turing test was designed to determine if a machine could exhibit intelligent behavior indistinguishable from that of a human. At its core, the test wasn't just a technical challenge, it was a philosophical one, asking us to reconsider the nature of intelligence itself. But Turing's question leads us deeper. If a machine can mimic human thought, does that mean it is thinking? Or is it simply a highly sophisticated trick, processing data without awareness or understanding? This brings us to a key philosophical debate that echoes through the ages, one explored by figures like Descartes, Kant, and Hegel. It's the debate between mind and matter, thought, and mechanics. To help unpack this, let's revisit the concept of philosophical idealism. Idealism, particularly as outlined by Hegel, suggests that reality is fundamentally shaped by consciousness and ideas, rather than by the material world alone. In other words, it's our perceptions and interpretations that construct reality, not just cold, hard facts. So how does this perspective fit into the world of AI? Some contemporary thinkers argue that AI can never truly be intelligent or conscious in the way humans are, because it lacks the subjective experience, what some philosophers call qualia. AI may process information and even simulate human conversation, but without perception or self-awareness, is it truly thinking or simply running a program? This debate gains new dimensions when we consider the implications of AI in society. Machines can now learn, adapt, and even create tasks we once considered uniquely human. But what does this mean for the future of creativity, decision-making, and human interaction? Will AI ever be able to engage in the kind of philosophical reflection that we're having right now? Many of the AI systems we see today are built on statistical models that predict human behavior, but they don't understand why they're doing it. For example, take a conversation with an AI chatbot. The chatbot can respond appropriately, but it doesn't have desires, intentions, or a grasp of what the conversation means. It's merely simulating understanding, much like an actor playing a role without fully grasping the motivations of the character. Here's where we circle back to philosophy. Turing, Hegel, and other thinkers invite us to ask, what is the role of consciousness in intelligence? If consciousness is necessary for true understanding, then AI, no matter how advanced, may never reach the kind of intellectual heights we associate with human thought. On the other hand, if intelligence is simply a matter of processing information and predicting outcomes, then perhaps machines are well on their way to surpassing human capabilities. So what's your take? Is human thought unique, or can it be replicated by machines? We'd love to hear your thoughts. As we move forward into this digital age, the lines between man and machine will continue to blur. But one thing remains clear: philosophy and technology will always need each other to help us navigate this new frontier. That's it for today's In Focus segment. Up next, we'll explore how mathematical patterns shape music in our segment, Cultural Pulse. Stay tuned.
La 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 la. La 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 la. Cultural Pulse. Music meets mathematics. La 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 la. La 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 la.
Welcome back, dear listeners, to Cultural Pulse, where we explore the rhythms and resonances that connect art, culture, and science. In today's segment, we're delving into a fascinating synergy, the relationship between music and mathematics. Have you ever wondered why certain musical pieces feel so harmonious, so perfectly balanced? The answer, more often than not, lies in the numbers. Mathematics and music might seem like two entirely different worlds, one governed by precision and logic, the other by emotion and expression. But in reality, they are deeply intertwined. From ancient Greek philosophers like Pythagoras, who first discovered the mathematical ratios behind musical intervals, to contemporary composers working with algorithms, numbers have always shaped music. Let's begin by talking about one of the most intriguing mathematical concepts in music: fractal rhythms. Fractals are patterns that repeat at different scales, and they can be found throughout nature. Think of the branching structure of trees or the spiraling form of galaxies. But fractals aren't limited to the natural world. They also appear in music, where composers use self-repeating patterns to create intricate, mesmerizing rhythms. One famous example comes from the work of composer György Ligeti, who incorporated fractal-like structures into his pieces to create dense, swirling textures that seem to expand infinitely. His music, full of complex patterns, mirrors the self-similarity we see in fractals. These recursive rhythms create an almost hypnotic effect, drawing listeners into a world where time and space seem to dissolve. But fractals are just the beginning. Let's talk about another mathematical sequence that has captivated musicians for centuries: the Fibonacci sequence. This sequence, in which each number is the sum of the two preceding ones, appears not only in mathematics but also in nature. Think of the arrangement of leaves on a stem or the spiral of a seashell. It also finds its way into music. Take the works of the 20th century composer Béla Bartók, for instance. Bartók, fascinated by the mathematical precision of nature, often structured his compositions using the Fibonacci sequence. In his music for strings, percussion, and celesta, you can hear the influence of these ratios in the proportions of the movements and even in the phrasing of the music. The result? A sense of organic growth, as if the music itself is unfolding like a living organism. Now, let's shift our focus to a more contemporary practice: algorithmic composition. In this cutting-edge field, composers use algorithms to generate musical material. Essentially, they write a set of rules, often based on mathematical principles, and then let a computer follow those rules to create a piece of music. The results can be surprising, even unpredictable, sometimes producing patterns that a human composer might never think of. One composer who has embraced this approach is David Cope, a pioneer in algorithmic music. Using a program he developed called Experiments in Musical Intelligence, Cope has been able to create music in the style of famous composers like Bach and Mozart. The results are so convincing that even experts have struggled to tell the difference between pieces written by the program and those by human composers. Of course, this raises some intriguing philosophical questions. If a computer can compose music that moves us emotionally, does that mean it's creating art? Or is it simply following a set of instructions without any understanding or intent? Much like our earlier discussion in the In Focus segment, the blending of music and mathematics forces us to confront the relationship between creativity and computation. But at the end of the day, whether through fractals, Fibonacci sequences, or algorithmic compositions, the marriage of music and mathematics reminds us of the inherent beauty of structure. It's a partnership that reveals something fundamental about the universe, that beneath the surface of what we hear and see, there's an underlying order, a harmony, if you will, that connects all things. So what do you think? Do mathematical patterns in music make it more beautiful, or do they strip away the mystery of art? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop us a message and let us know how you feel about the intersection of numbers and notes. Coming up after the break, we're diving into the Philosopher's Corner, where we'll explore the ideas of Slavoj Žižek and Işık Barış Fidaner. Stay tuned for more on Light of the Morning.
La 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 la. Philosopher's Corner, exploring Žižek and Fidaner. La 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 la.
Welcome back to Light of the Morning. And now we enter one of my favorite segments, Philosopher's Corner. Today, we're going to delve into some exciting territory, exploring the works of two provocative thinkers, Slavoj Žižek and Işık Fidaner. Both of these philosophers have offered us a unique lens through which we can view the chaotic, technology-driven world we live in today. Let's start with the enigmatic Slovenian philosopher Slavoj Žižek, known for his bold, often controversial takes on ideology, culture, and politics. Žižek is a philosopher who has made a name for himself by analyzing popular culture, everything from The Matrix to Coca-Cola commercials, through the lens of psychoanalysis and critical theory. His work often revolves around the concept of ideology and how it controls, manipulates, and seduces us in ways we don't even notice. One of his key ideas is that ideology isn't just a set of beliefs imposed on us by society or the media. It's something much more subtle. According to Žižek, we don't simply believe in ideologies. They form the very backdrop of how we understand reality. We think we're acting independently or rationally, but in reality we're guided by invisible forces, whether it's capitalism, nationalism, or even the structure of social media algorithms. Now let's bring Işık Fidaner into the conversation. Fidaner is a contemporary philosopher who has taken Žižek's ideas and applied them to our modern digital age. His work, particularly in the field of computational philosophy, explores how the algorithms that govern our online lives, search engines, social media platforms, recommendation systems, are the new form of ideology. Fidaner argues that in today's world, we don't just consume ideology through media or political discourse, but through our everyday interactions with technology. Every time we click on a recommended video, receive personalized ads, or scroll through a curated social media feed, we're engaging with a digital system that subtly shapes our perceptions and desires. In this sense, algorithms are the new ideological apparatus, an invisible hand guiding our behavior while giving us the illusion of freedom and choice. But Fidaner goes even further. Drawing on Žižek's notion of the symbolic order, he suggests that algorithms are creating a new symbolic universe, one where meaning is constructed not by language or human culture, but by data and machine learning models. In this new universe, the things we encounter online don't just reflect our preferences, they create them. Over time, this could lead to a profound shift in how we understand ourselves and the world around us. Imagine, for example, how much of your identity is shaped by the content you interact with online. From the news articles you read to the music you listen to, all of it is filtered through an algorithm designed to maximize engagement. What does this mean for our sense of agency, for our ability to think critically? Are we becoming passive subjects of a digital order we barely comprehend? This leads us to a key point where Žižek and Fidaner overlap, the idea that in a world saturated with technology and ideology, we need to develop new forms of resistance. For Žižek, this often means disrupting the smooth functioning of ideology by exposing its contradictions, revealing how the systems we rely on are actually built on shaky foundations. For Fidaner, resistance means understanding the mechanics of the digital systems that shape our lives, and finding ways to subvert them. Fidaner's work invites us to rethink how we interact with technology. Rather than passively consuming content fed to us by algorithms, we should be critically engaging with these systems, asking questions like, who controls these algorithms? What assumptions are they built on? And perhaps most importantly, how can we regain control over our digital lives? But this raises another set of philosophical questions. Can we ever truly escape the digital ideologies we live under? Is it even possible to act independently in a world where so much of our behavior is influenced by invisible systems? These are questions both Žižek and Fidaner grapple with, and they don't offer easy answers. Instead, they challenge us to stay aware, to remain critical, and to keep questioning the forces that shape our lives. So where does that leave us? In a world where ideology and technology intertwine, it's clear that we need new ways of thinking about freedom, agency, and resistance. Žižek and Fidaner's work pushes us to confront these issues head-on and reminds us that even in a digital age, philosophy is more important than ever. That's all for today's Philosopher's Corner. We hope this deep dive into Žižek and Fidaner has sparked some new ideas and questions in your mind. As always, we'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share your reflections with us. Coming up next, we'll dive into our Book of the Day segment, where we explore Jean Baudrillard's Simulacra and Simulation. How does this classic text on hyperreality connect to today's digital world? Stay tuned for more thought-provoking content right here on Light of the Morning.
Book of the Day, Simulacra and Simulation, Baudrillard.
Welcome back to Light of the Morning. It's time for one of our most anticipated segments, Book of the Day. Today, we're diving into Jean Baudrillard's Simulacra and Simulation, a text that has become essential reading for anyone interested in how media, culture, and reality intertwine in the digital age. Baudrillard's work, published in 1981, explores the concept of hyperreality, a world where the line between reality and simulation blurs to the point where we can no longer distinguish between the two. Sounds familiar, right? In an era where virtual realities, deepfakes, and social media feed us constantly, Baudrillard's insights are more relevant than ever. Let's unpack this concept of hyperreality a little more. Baudrillard argues that in our postmodern world, representations of reality, things like images, symbols, and media, have become more real than reality itself. We live in a world of simulacra, or copies without an original. Essentially, our reality is shaped more by simulations of reality than by anything authentic. Think of it as living in a hall of mirrors where each reflection seems real, but none of them actually is. To bring this idea into today's context, let's look at social media. Platforms like Instagram and TikTok are filled with highly curated, filtered versions of life, what we might call hyper-real versions of reality. People share idealized images of themselves, their vacations, their meals, their relationships. Each post is a simulation of life, often far removed from the messy, unfiltered reality. Yet these simulations shape our perceptions of what life should be, influencing how we feel about ourselves and our experiences. Baudrillard would say that we no longer live in reality. We live in the simulation of reality. Our desires, our behaviors, even our sense of identity are increasingly tied to images and symbols produced by media. And here's the tricky part. Because these simulations are everywhere, we lose the ability to recognize what's real and what's not. We start to prefer the hyperreal, the polished, idealized version of life over the authentic, unmediated experience. This idea of hyperreality also plays out in the world of consumer culture. Think about advertising, where products are sold not just for their practical uses, but for the images and lifestyles they represent. A luxury car commercial doesn't just sell a vehicle, it sells an image of success, power, and status. We're not buying the car, we're buying the simulation of what the car means in the symbolic order of our society. In Baudrillard's terms, we are consuming simulacra, representations detached from any tangible reality. But here's the most provocative part of Baudrillard's argument. At a certain point, the simulation doesn't just reflect reality, it replaces it. The simulacra becomes more real than reality itself. This is what Baudrillard famously called the desert of the real, a place where reality is hollowed out, replaced by endless copies and reproductions that don't refer back to anything original. This might remind you of the classic movie The Matrix, which was heavily inspired by Baudrillard's ideas. In fact, Neo hides his illicit software inside a hollowed-out copy of Simulacra and Simulation. The film explores a world where people are trapped in a simulated reality, unaware of the true world outside. In a sense, this is what Baudrillard is talking about. We live in a constructed reality so immersive and convincing that we can't see beyond it. But let's bring this back to our everyday lives. In an age where we're constantly bombarded with media, news feeds, advertisements, entertainment, it becomes increasingly difficult to tell what's real and what's simulated. Baudrillard's work forces us to question: are we still connected to a tangible, authentic reality, or are we living in a simulation constructed by the systems that surround us? Now, before we leave this thought-provoking text, let's consider the implications for our digital future. With the rise of virtual reality, augmented reality, and AI-generated content, the world of simulacra is becoming even more complex. Virtual influencers, for example, completely digital beings that have thousands, sometimes millions of followers, embody Baudrillard's vision of hyper-reality. These digital personas may not be real, but they influence real people, real behaviors, and even real markets. So what does this all mean for us as individuals? Baudrillard challenges us to reflect on how we interact with these simulations. Are we actively aware of the hyperreal world we're participating in? Or have we become passive consumers of simulacra? Can we still find authenticity in a world dominated by representations? Or is the search for the real futile? In a way, Baudrillard's work is not just a critique of postmodern society. It's a wake-up call. It urges us to be more critical of the media we consume, the symbols we internalize, and the systems that shape our perceptions. In a world where simulations of reality dominate, perhaps the most radical act we can take is to reclaim some sense of the real. That's it for today's Book of the Day segment. If you haven't already, I highly recommend picking up a copy of Simulacra and Simulation. It's a challenging read, but one that offers deep insights into the world we live in today, and perhaps the world we're heading towards. Up next, we'll explore the ethical implications of AI in society in our segment, Reflections on the Future. What responsibilities do we have as we build increasingly intelligent machines? Stay tuned for more engaging content right here on Light of the Morning.
La 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 la. Reflections on the Future. Ethics and Society. La 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 la.
Reflections on the Future, AI, Ethics, and Society. Welcome back to Light of the Morning, where we're diving into today's final and most forward-looking segment, Reflections on the Future. In this segment, we'll explore the ethical implications of artificial intelligence, one of the most critical issues we face as a society today. As AI continues to evolve, its influence spreads into every aspect of our lives, from healthcare and education to social media and entertainment. But with great power comes great responsibility, and the question on everyone's mind is, are we ready for the future we're creating? Let's start by considering the profound impact AI has on decision-making. Right now, algorithms are making choices that affect people's lives, sometimes in ways that aren't immediately visible. AI systems are already determining who gets approved for a loan, who receives a job interview, and even who gets matched with life-saving healthcare. These decisions, based on vast amounts of data, are supposed to be fair, efficient, and impartial. But the reality is far more complicated. One of the biggest concerns surrounding AI is bias. AI systems are trained on historical data, and if that data reflects existing inequalities or prejudices, the AI can end up perpetuating those biases. For example, studies have shown that facial recognition algorithms tend to be less accurate at identifying people of color, leading to concerns about racial profiling. Similarly, hiring algorithms might reflect gender or socioeconomic biases present in past hiring practices, reinforcing disparities rather than eliminating them. This brings us to an essential question. Who is responsible when AI systems make biased or harmful decisions? Is it the engineers who design the algorithms? The companies that deploy them? Or society as a whole for failing to ensure fairness in the data that powers these systems? Another ethical concern that looms large is privacy. As AI becomes more integrated into our lives, it collects vast amounts of personal data, from our online shopping habits to our medical histories, even the patterns in our speech or behavior. This data helps AI improve its predictions and services, but it also raises critical issues about how much privacy we're willing to sacrifice for convenience. Take, for instance, AI-powered voice assistants like Siri, Alexa, or Google Assistant. These devices are always listening, collecting data to better understand your commands and preferences. But that data is stored, analyzed, and sometimes shared with third parties. Do we really understand what's being done with the information gathered from our interactions? And at what point does AI-driven convenience start to infringe on our right to privacy? The conversation doesn't stop at personal privacy. In the context of governments and corporations, AI is already being used for surveillance, raising fears about the potential for abuse. For example, the use of AI in mass surveillance can track people's movements, behaviors, and even predict their actions based on previous data. This opens up concerns about state overreach and control, especially in societies with authoritarian tendencies. The possibility of AI being used to monitor and suppress dissent is no longer science fiction. It's a growing reality. Beyond bias and privacy, we also need to think about employment. AI and automation are transforming the workplace, and while many jobs are becoming more efficient, others are disappearing entirely. Autonomous systems are replacing human workers in industries ranging from manufacturing to customer service, and even creative fields like writing and music composition are starting to see the influence of AI. This technological shift raises two critical questions. What happens to the workers displaced by AI? And what kind of jobs will exist in the future? While some argue that AI will create new opportunities, history suggests that transitions of this magnitude often leave large segments of the population struggling to adapt. Governments and businesses are now faced with the challenge of ensuring that AI benefits everyone, not just a privileged few. This could mean rethinking education and job training programs to prepare people for an AI-driven economy. Or perhaps even implementing policies like universal basic income to ensure that those who are displaced aren't left behind. And now we come to the most philosophical and perhaps the most unsettling question of all. What happens if AI surpasses human intelligence? This concept, known as artificial general intelligence, AGI, is the idea that AI could one day match or exceed human cognitive abilities. If we reach that point, we'll face unprecedented ethical dilemmas. Should we grant rights to intelligent machines? Can we trust an entity smarter than us to act in humanity's best interest? And who ultimately will control this technology? Some of the greatest minds in technology and science, figures like Tim Berners-Lee and Fei-Fei Li, have warned that if we're not careful, the rise of superintelligent AI could pose a threat to human existence. Whether or not you believe in the more dystopian scenarios, one thing is clear. We need to start thinking about the long-term consequences of creating machines that may one day outthink us. But here's where the hope comes in. AI also has the potential to solve some of humanity's greatest challenges. From advancing medical research to tackling climate change, AI could help us find solutions that have eluded us for centuries. The ethical questions aren't just about preventing harm, they're also about maximizing the benefits of this powerful technology. So, where do we go from here? As AI becomes more integrated into our lives, the ethical decisions we make today will shape the future of society. We need to ask ourselves, how do we ensure that AI is used for good, that it promotes fairness and justice rather than perpetuating inequality and harm? How do we safeguard our privacy while still embracing the potential of AI? And perhaps most importantly, how do we remain in control of the technology we've created? These are difficult questions, but they're ones we need to face head-on. The future of AI isn't just about technology. It's about humanity, ethics, and the choices we make as a society. As we move forward, let's make sure that we're building a future that reflects the best of what we are, not just the capabilities of what we can create. That's all for today's Reflections on the Future segment. I hope it's given you something to think about as we navigate this rapidly changing landscape together. If you have thoughts, questions, or insights, feel free to share them with us. Your voice is always welcome here on Light of the Morning. Host, and with that, we conclude today's program. Thank you for joining us on this intellectual and creative journey. I'm your host, wishing you a thoughtful and inspired day ahead. Stay curious, stay critical, and stay connected. Until next time on Light of the Morning.
La 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 la. La 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 la. Sounds of nature, meditative escape. La 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 la.